Hi, this is Tim Barrett with No Geek Left Behind, and welcome to part 2 of our video where we are taking a Windows MultiPoint server and we are essentially cloning it. We're not cloning in the traditional sense, but we're using this for demo purposes. We have a box. It's going to be on tour, and at the end of each stop on the tour we want to wipe it and reload it. So what we've done in the first part of the video was we backed up the entire system with ShadowProtect, and now we're going to show you how to restore that. So what we see here is our original MultiPoint server that was in Hyper-V. We're done with that. It's been backed up. We'll turn it off and we'll come up here and we're going to create a new virtual machine. And we're just doing virtual machines because it's easier to see than holding a shaky camera over physical hardware. So we'll call this one Reborn, and we'll put it over here on our drive with our VMs. And we'll give it some RAM, not very much, just enough for the demo. Throw it in a sandbox. And we're going to give it a 250 gig drive. That's key because our original system, physical system, had two drives, a 250 gig for the OS and a 250 gig just for holding the backups. So there's our machine right there. And because this is a virtual machine, we're going to insert an ISO since we don't have a physical CD here. So we'll go to Install and go to Image File, and we're going to browse and find that ShadowProtect ISO right here using version 3.51 for the demo. And next, so here are our specs. This is a machine with 2 gigs of RAM. We give it a network connection. This is our primary VHD. We're going to add a second one here in a moment. So we'll hit Finish. And it created our virtual machine. It should be here under Reborn. There it is. Now, all the virtual machine is just a configuration file. And if we look into Reborn, there's the configuration file there, and here's our VHD. Doesn't have any content in it. So what we will do is take this little fake USB drive here that holds our backup, and we're going to make a duplicate of that. And it'll take it a moment here to copy those files over. So this could be a USB drive. It could be an internal drive in the system. So if you had a demo box with two drives, one was your primary and the other one was used to wipe and reload the system each time, you could do this. Also, if you had one internal drive for the OS and a backup drive, you could have multiple VHDs on there, so you could decide what operating system you wanted to put on there when you wiped and reloaded the PC. So it doesn't really matter. It's moving fairly quickly considering this is all on the same drive, about 50 megs per second. It's almost done here. And ShadowProtect can be run off of a regular boot CD. It can be run off of a flash drive, or there's a special flash drive called the IT Edition. And the IT Edition is a subscription-based product that you get from StorageCraft, and you can plug it in multiple computers. It's licensed per technician, and so you can when you're restoring a small business server essentials, for example, the ones on the tour are using HP microservers, and there are no optical drives typically in the microservers, so you would have to use some type of USB media to be able to restore that. So it's almost done. And as soon as it's done copying this file, we're going to go into the configuration and just tell our virtual machine is allowed to use this file. We could have just pointed it to the original one, but why not? We're having fun. Okay, so we have a 250 gig drive here, which is dynamic. There's our backup, and if we go up to this, was the original computer here with a 250, and they were both dynamic there. So we can close that window. Go here to our settings, and we need to tell it on IDE controller 1 we're going to add a hard drive, which is that one we just created a moment ago. We'll just browse to it, go into the Reborn folder. There's our 250 gig drive, and if you see, it is about 4 gigs in size. The operating system is about 8 gigs, 50% compression on this particular backup, so when we're done restoring, this drive here should be about 8 gigs. So there we go. And it's in blue until we apply our changes, and then it goes gray. We're done. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this machine. and make sure that we've got our ISO in there. We do. And I'm going to have to use my little double mouse trick here since I remoted in. This is server 2008, so we're going to use option 1 on the recovery environment. If it was server 2003 or older, we would use the other option, option 2. And when it comes up in a moment, it'll ask us about networking. For the restore process, we don't need networking enabled, so we tell it no. It just saves us some time on the reboot. There it is. Cancel. You like my little 2 mice there? Alright. So now we have a, we're going to run the restore wizard. And because the VHD we just created would be like a physical disk, it has no partitions on it. As soon as we create that first partition, it wants to do a reboot. So we'll just start the restore wizard and hit next. We're going to browse to where that backup file is. The backup file is on this image reload drive here, and you can ignore the drive letters, it doesn't matter. And we want, we're going to restore the reserve, that little 100 meg partition. Hit OK. And we hit next, and it's going to ask us, here is our unallocated drive. So we will right click that and choose create exact primary partition at the beginning of the free space. When we do that and click it, it says, alright, we have to reboot. So we say, okay, we'll let it reboot. And we'll come right back through that same process again. I highly recommend doing this off of a USB drive if you can, just because the USB is so much faster than the CD. So here comes StorageCraft. Go back to option 1, and this is a WinPE environment. So make sure if you've got a RAID controller or anything like that, even if you've got a 64-bit operating system, this is a 32-bit WinPE environment for the recovery console. So make sure you're using 32-bit drivers to access your RAID controller. So we do not need networking. We go back to our restore wizard again. Next. Browse. Computer. And there's our 100 meg partition there. Next. And it goes right there. See, it created that for us. We hit next. And we don't need to really be concerned about this first one because it's not going to be our active partition, so I just uncheck active partition there. You can leave the other options, it's fine. And then hit next and finish, and because it's so small, it will complete this very quickly. See, it's already done. So that was partition the 100 meg. We need to do the second one now. So we go to restore volume, next, browse to that drive again to see there's our C partition. Next, and this time we're going to right click that unallocated space, and we're going to create a primary partition using all of the unallocated space. So we choose that, and we have to wait for a moment for that to show up. Alright, there we go. So now we have an unrecognized partition because the partition has been created but not formatted. We don't even need to format it. So we check that box, hit finish, and we are going to set the partition active, and I would restore the master boot record from the image file. Hit next, hit finish. Now this one is bigger. It's 4 gigs compressed, and it'll be 8 gigs when it's done. It says 24 minutes. I don't know if that's true or not, if it'll take that long. No, already down to 15. We should see some pretty decent write speeds on this. So what I'll do is pause the video, and as soon as we get to the point where that's done, we'll reboot the machine and show you that it is actually working. Okay, and we're back. So it has finished restoring from the SPF file, and you notice it took just under 8 minutes on this particular piece of hardware. Physical hardware is probably going to be even faster than the virtual machines because it's separate physical disks. So anyway, the restore is done. So what we'll do is we'll actually tell it, we'll click on File and then tell it to exit ShadowProtect since we've restored both of our partitions. And I could go through all the fun of ejecting the disk, but I want to leave that in there just to show you with the USB drive plugged in what you may see if you don't take that flash drive out in time. And if you don't do that, it's not a big deal. But if you do eject it, it'll be a little quicker. So you'll see we'll still get the blue screen. We can actually just tell it to boot from a hard disk. If we don't click on anything after we exit ShadowProtect, it will boot from the hard disk anyway. So if you see that screen, you forgot to take it out, it's okay. You can just not even hit the keyboard and you'll be fine. So we will click in there and hit number 3. And we see it starting to load. And remember, we restored this to a completely blank drive. We recreated the partitions from scratch, or actually ShadowProtect recreated them for us, and we just let it do it. Preparing our desktop. And we are back at MultiPoint server. So something to keep in mind, I wouldn't recommend cloning multiple ones of these and keeping them on the same network because they're all going to have the same SID. So don't use this as a tool to, for deployment across multiple machines. I think you'll be fine if you use it for just reloading your particular machine when it's time for the demo. And just to show you that everything is working, we'll log in, check out our partitions. And it was pretty quick if you consider about an 8-minute restore. This video so far is like 12 minutes for part 2, and a lot of that to me explaining things, so it should be very quick to reimage these. So here is our 100 meg partition, the one we called reserved. Here is our C drive, the one we called C_volume, and we can actually go in to media, and just to show you, we'll eject that ISO file. It's the same thing as if we'd taken out the CD or pulled out the flash drive. But that's it. So this image reload folder here, this is only for holding those SPF files. And we talked about it in the first video, but in case you missed the first video, right here, this is SPF is a ShadowProtect full. So this is our OS. When it was compressed, it was 4.5 gigs, and this is that little reserved folder right there. And that's it. And we don't have to have a, we don't really care that there's a drive letter for that. If we wanted to, we could remove that drive letter, but it should be fine. And if we go back here, and after it has been refreshed, you'll see that that drive letter is gone. We just have the image reload and the local C drive. So that is it. That's what you have to do to re-image the system. If you have any questions, watch the video again or shoot me an email. Thanks so much. Bye.